chulas. So it's going to be lots of different things today. So you won't get bored. But it's also checking your focus and attention, okay? You're switching from one topic to another topic to a third topic. So you got to hang in there with us, okay? So water supply in developing countries. Now I'm going to tell you some stories about this, okay? So water supply in developing countries. So when many developing countries were under colonial rulers, many of them started becoming independent in the late 1940s, early 1950s. When they started becoming independent, many governments started saying we have to, many national governments like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Ghana, Nigeria, all those countries started saying, we have so many things to take care of. We have to take care of poverty, we have to take care of industrial development, we have to improve our agriculture sector. One of the areas that they wanted to start looking for the first time, when these countries were under colonial rule, the British or whoever was the colonial master didn't really care about water supply, right? They provided water supply to someone. But when these countries became independent, the countries said we have to take care of water supply as well. So they were trying to figure out what to do about water supply. The first 10-15 years that countries were independent, like India for the first 10-15 years, the focus was more on providing water for agriculture because there was a large population and somehow there had to be water for agriculture, so that was the focus. So India built many dams and those dams provided water, and many other countries did the same thing. But by the mid-1960s, the urban population had become fairly significant, and many urban areas in India and other developing countries did not have enough water for their residents. And so, many of these countries started trying to figure out what should they do about water supply. And in many cities, in many developing countries, there were private water supply mechanisms. There were private contractors who would take water from some places and then deliver water at some places, usually by tanker. Okay, they'll have a tanker full of water and they'll deliver it to different places and people would buy. But there was concern that people are paying too much for water and that the quality of water is probably not good. So many developing countries approached international financial agencies such as the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and so on. And they started asking for funding for water, for expanding water. And at that time, in the late 1960s and early 1970s, there was a strong push, very strong push, to have municipal water supply systems. People who control the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund and UN agencies all felt that cities in all countries, developed countries and developing countries, should have municipal water supply systems. The reason why they said they should have municipal water supply systems is this. Water is essential for life. If water is not provided at good quality at reasonable prices, it's a public health issue. And all these multilateral agencies, international agencies felt that governments are best suited to provide water. They will, and if a government agency is in charge of providing water, there will be economies of scale. A government agency will control the quality, and the government agency is not profit-seeking, so the prices will be right. So, for all those reasons, they really pushed municipalization of water supply. And in many places, there were small private contractors who were supplying water in developing countries. They were all removed from the scene, and government started building in Delhi, in Bombay, in Chennai, in other places. They started building water treatment plants, water pipelines, and providing a lot of infrastructure for water. In the 70s and 80s, what happened in many developing countries is this. One, a lot of people, there was lots of wastage of this treated water. Some of the wastage came because of the equipment was not well maintained, and equipment needs to be well maintained, especially when the city becomes very large. There will be some breakages somewhere, someone is making a road, cracks a pipe, and the pipe is not maintained, and then water goes out of it. but also because in many, many developing countries, people would just tap illegally into the water supply. So about 30 to 40% of the treated water was not getting accounted for, and it was well known by the 1980s that about 30 to 40% of the treated water is not being accounted for. Second, in many of these places, whenever the municipal government tried to increase the water charges, there were riots, there were political problems. So, the water supply system came to be seen as a system that generally developing countries cannot maintain well because there are lots of leakages and breakages, that cannot control legally because people are illegally tapping into it. And third, became cost sinks, meaning a lot of money was spent on fixing up the system, on running the system, but cost recovery was very low. A lot of water was being wasted, and charges for water could not be increased. So around that time, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, there was a new global philosophy that was being developed. Okay, this philosophy was called neoliberalism. Okay, so neoliberalism started becoming a prominent force in global affairs in the late 1980s and mid 1980s and early 1990s, primarily promoted by two people. The then President of the US, Ronald Reagan, and then Prime Minister of UK, Margaret Thatcher. Both of them were very strong proponents of this thing called new liberalism. What was the key principle of new liberalism? And the key principle of new liberalism was governments do not work very efficiently, markets do. So governments should reduce their size and let the markets do their work. Markets are very efficient, they will provide services, and applied to the water supply system, what the new liberalism meant that the water supply system in cities should be controlled by the private sector, and neoliberalists said the private sector will ensure that the water supply system, the equipment is well maintained. If someone taps illegally into it, the private people will go and chase the people down and prevent them from doing it, and will do revenue collection, 100% revenue collection. So that's what it meant. Now there were no reasons why this should work out, but people who supported neoliberalism really believed that this would work out. And people used to ask Margaret Thatcher, why do you support neoliberalism so much? And she would say, T-I-N-A, Tina, T-I-N-A. And that was an acronym for there is no alternative. She would say there is no alternative, governments are efficient, government should be shrunk, and we should privatize things. So, starting in the late 1990s, whenever any country, and many developing countries, including India, many a time have gone to the World Bank and said, give us some money for this project or that project. Starting in the late 1980s, whenever some country went to the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund, these are the two big agencies that give money. Went to either of them for money, they will give the loan, but would attach a condition. And generally they started attaching this condition related to privatizing the water supply in the big cities of a country. Okay? So, for example, if India would go and ask for some money to improve, let's say, Mumbai port, the World Bank would say, that's good, but we give you the money, but we want you to privatize the water supply system in Mumbai. Okay, so I'm just giving you an example. So they would ask for money for X, but a condition would be attached to it that's not related to X, but because of their philosophy. Okay? So let me tell you a little bit about World Bank and International Monetary Fund. These are two international organizations. They are member organizations, and India is a member of both of these organizations. And both these organizations, member countries put some money into it as part of their membership. Okay? Both of these organizations were set up just after the Second World War, to provide money to developing countries for development purposes. Okay? And the argument was, if a developing country takes money from a multilateral agency such as the World Bank, then they would not be controlled by a country. For example, if India were to take money from the US, the fear was India could become a US colony. Whereas if they took it from a World Bank, it's a multilateral agency, so India would not become a colony of the World Bank. Okay, so that's why these two agencies were set up. So both have the same number of members, except that in the World Bank, the president of the World Bank is always appointed by the US, and the president of the International Monetary Fund is always appointed by Europe. And the president of the World Bank is generally a US person. The president of International Monetary Fund is usually a person from Europe. But the current president of the World Bank is, Sir, sorry? He's a Sardarji. The current president of the World Bank is a Sardarji, who is the head of Citibank, and he was appointed to become the World Bank, Ajay Banga. He's the president of the World Bank. Okay, so these two organizations, but he's appointed by the US government, not by the Indian government. So these two organizations give out lots and lots of money. They have more money than any individual country can give out. And they started attaching this new this condition that water supply would be privatized. And many countries would go ask for some money, and these people would give the money, World Bank and IMF would give the money and say, you have to privatize your water supply system. And so, many such cities were getting, water was getting privatized in many such cities. Till mid-1990s, where in the country of Bolivia, something happened in Bolivia. So Bolivia had a major economic crisis. They went to the World Bank and said, could you give us so many $1 billion because we have to make payments to other people, so we want to borrow some money. So World Bank and IMF do not give grants, okay? They give loans. These loans have to be repaid. And all the member countries get some of the interest income. So if India is a member country, it puts some money into the World Bank. When the World Bank gives a loan, some interest income comes, India gets some interest income, okay? So none of these organizations are charitable organizations. They're making money. So anyway, so the Bolivia went to the World Bank and said, we have an economic problem. Can you give us some money to solve our economic problems, and we will pay the money back. So the World Bank said, yes, we will give you this money, but here's one condition. The second largest city in Bolivia is a city called Cochabamba. So they said, the World Bank said, Cochabamba's water supply system has to be privatized. That was a condition. Okay? Now, Cochabamba's water supply system was a municipal system. That municipal system provided water for about 40 to 50% of the population at reasonable prices. There were concerns that the municipal supply cannot be expanded, that the municipal supply was irregular, the municipal supply was not very good quality. Now, these are issues that are there in the water supply of Delhi, for instance. Okay, Delhi's water supply system does not supply water to everyone. Most people live in middle-class households, get water only for 1 or 2 hours a day. Most people, the water that they get from the municipal system, they boil the water or filter it before drinking. So these are common things across the world. But in Cochabamba, the World Bank said, you know, you have the system has got a problem, and you must privatize the system. So the country of Bolivia had no choice. They wanted the money, and they said, okay, well, let's try this privatization experiment. We will let a private company take over our municipal water supply of this second largest town called Cochabamba. So the World Bank said, okay, here's the money. Now the World Bank's neoliberalist philosophy is that a private sector entity will come in, private sector will be efficient, so they had an open tender. They invited global agencies to come and compete to run the thing. So why do they have a global tender? They have a global tender because they believe that when there's a global tender, there'll be lots of people competing, and there'll be some good firms who will compete, And then the World Bank would be able to choose the firm that provides the best service at the lowest cost. Okay, that's part of the market, right? Market philosophy, many people compete. So they issued a global tender, and they published the tender, call for the tender, in many, many international newspapers, like New York Times, London Times, Times of India, and they published all of that. And they kept the period open for people to respond, companies to respond to it for 6 months. So companies had 6 months to prepare a response for it. This is in the mid-1990s. And at the end of the day, at the end of 6 months, they looked at how many applications they had received. And do you know how many applications they had received from these big companies? Precisely 0. Okay? So the World Bank was hoping that one of 4 big companies would come and bid for it. There are 4 big international construction water management companies. One of them is a company called Enron. Enron is a major US-based company, was a major US-based company that was involved in selling power, not generating, selling power, trading power and trading water, and managing water supply in many, many countries across the world. And it was founded in the 1930s or 40s and went bankrupt in 2005. But in mid-1990s, it was a big company. Okay. The second company is a company called Bechtel. Bechtel is a major US construction company, and much of the construction, US-funded construction that has happened in Afghanistan and Iraq was done by Bechtel. Bechtel has very good connections, used to have very good connections with the national government in the US. So they would get these contracts to do large construction without any tendering process, without any bid or tender process. Okay? The third company is a company called Suez. Suez is a French company that was founded in 1800s. It's a major engineering company, and it built the Suez Canal. Okay, so it's a very big company that made the Suez Canal in the 1860s, 1870s. And they are still there. They still exist. They do major engineering projects, water supply projects all over the world. The fourth company is a company called Vivendi. That's also a French construction company. And these 4 companies used to do a lot of construction projects all over the world. And so World Bank was hoping that all these 4 will bid, and then World Bank will get the best bid from them, best quality service and the lowest cost, and the World Bank will select one of them. So they got no bids. So the World Bank went to Bechtel, okay, one of the 2 American companies, and World Bank is controlled by the US. They went to Bechtel and said, Bechtel, we want you to take over Cochabamba's water supply system and run it. And Bechtel said, we don't want to. Okay? So then the World Bank said, you better do this one, because you will be competing for many World Bank projects. And if you don't take this one, we will blacklist you. You will not get. So Bechtel said, okay, we'll take it. But Bechtel said, and the World Bank said, you will get all the assets of the municipal water supply system in Cochabamba. You will get the pumping station, you will get the pipes, you will get all the equipment, all of that you'll get. But you'll have to pay the municipality a certain amount of money. So just before Bechtel agreed to it, private parties had estimated what's the value of this water supply system in Cochabamba, the infrastructure. And they had said it is about $200 million US. Bechtel came and they assessed the system and they said, well, it's worth $1 million US. Okay, there is a small difference, right, between 1 million and 200. But World Bank said, Bechtel, okay, 1 million, you can take it for 1 million. Okay? So the World Bank was hoping that one of 4 big companies would come and bid for it. There are 4 big international construction water management companies. One of them is a company called Enron. Enron is a major US-based company, was a major US-based company that was involved in selling power, not generating, selling power, trading power and trading water, and managing water supply in many, many countries across the world. And it was founded in the 1930s or 40s and went bankrupt in 2005. But in mid-1990s, it was a big company. Okay. The second company is a company called Bechtel. Bechtel is a major US construction company, and much of the construction, US-funded construction that has happened in Afghanistan and Iraq was done by Bechtel. Bechtel has very good connections, used to have very good connections with the national government in the US. So they would get these contracts to do large construction without any tendering process, without any bid or tender process. Okay? The third company is a company called Suez. Suez is a French company that was founded in 1800s. It's a major engineering company, and it built the Suez Canal. Okay, so it's a very big company that made the Suez Canal in the 1860s, 1870s. And they are still there. They still exist. They do major engineering projects, water supply projects all over the world. The fourth company is a company called Vivendi. That's also a French construction company. And these four companies used to do a lot of construction projects all over the world. And so World Bank was hoping that all these four will bid, and then World Bank will get the best bid from them, best quality service and the lowest cost, and the World Bank will select one of them. So they got no bids. So the World Bank went to Bechtel, okay, one of the two American companies, and World Bank is controlled by the US. They went to Bechtel and said, Bechtel, we want you to take over Cochabamba's water supply system and run it. And Bechtel said, we don't want to. Okay? So then the World Bank said, you better do this one because you will be competing for many World Bank projects. And if you don't take this one, we will blacklist you. You will not get. So Bechtel said, okay, we'll take it. But Bechtel said, and the World Bank said, you will get all the assets of the municipal water supply system in Cochabamba. You will get the pumping station, you will get the pipes, you will get all the equipment, all of that you'll get. But you'll have to pay the municipality a certain amount of money. So just before Bechtel agreed to it, private parties had estimated what's the value of this water supply system in Cochabamba, the infrastructure. And they had said it is about $200 million US. Bechtel came and they assessed the system and they said, well, it's worth $1 million US. Okay, there is a small difference, right, between 1 million and 200. But World Bank said, Bechtel, okay, 1 million, you can take it for 1 million. Okay, and they took over the system. They started supplying the water. And when they started supplying the water, they found that the cost of water is very, very low. The consumers are paying very, very low for the water. Let's say they're paying, I'm just making this up, okay? Let's say they're paying 1 rupee per liter of water, okay? And Bechtel said that's very, very low. This thing cannot be, we can't run it as a business operation at 1 rupee. We have to increase the price to 10 rupees a liter, 10 times over 2 years. So it won't go from 1 to 10, it will go from 1 to 3 to 6 to 9. In 2 years it will be 10 rupees. Okay? Now that's a huge increase. Okay, it's a 1000% increase in a very short period of time. So that's a political problem. Okay? And as they started increasing the price, after 3 months, 6 months, people started protesting against it. Then Bechtel said, we are getting all our water from ground aquifers, underground aquifers. Outside Cochabamba, outside the city, but in the same district, outside the urban area, there were lots of farmers. And these farmers would sink bore wells into the ground and extract water from agriculture, from the same underground aquifer where Bechtel was taking its water. And they've done it for many, many generations. Bechtel said that underground reservoir is our property. Okay? And they sent notices to all the farmers saying that if you continue to take water from our facility, you have to pay us water charges. and they gave a scale, water charge. Now, urban consumers generally pay more than rural consumers, okay? But rural consumers, agriculture consumes a lot of water. So even if the agricultural consumers are charged 1 rupee per liter, they consume much more than urban consumers. So farmers started getting bills. They started violent protests against Bechtel. And one fine day, a huge political, large group of people showed up at the Bechtel offices in Cochabamba, in Bolivia, and told the Bechtel people, you have 24 hours to leave the country. And in 24 hours later, within 24 hours, Bechtel left. And the people took back all these systems. And not only took back all these systems, the existing government in Bolivia that had allowed this privatization was overthrown. And a new people's government took over. And they still rule Bolivia 30 years later. So water supply can really cause revolutions. In response to that, the then Secretary General of the United Nations was a guy from Ghana called Kofi Annan. He convened a major conference in Ghana, in the capital of Ghana called Accra. And in that conference, all the participants later signed a declaration, including the US and UK signed a declaration saying that water is essential for life. It cannot be produced and distributed based on market principles. Okay? So in other words, neoliberalism can apply to other things, but they cannot apply to water supply because it is so essential for life. And this is called the Ghana Accord on water. It's 2005 Ghana Accord on water. And since then, the World Bank has not asked, none of the multilateral agencies have asked for this condition whenever they give any money. This Cochabamba water wars are extensively studied in urban planning, in political science. And if you wish, you can go to YouTube and Google Cochabamba water wars, and you'll get many, many videos and documentaries. Books have been written about this. Okay? So, in developing countries, there is this problem. Municipalities don't have the money to provide to cover everyone with water supply infrastructure. When they do, they're often unable to maintain it. And even if they are able to maintain it, they are not able to do full cost recovery. So those problems still persist. Many municipalities in developing countries have that problem. The second thing is the use of water in agriculture. In many places, water used for agriculture is free. I think it's the case in India. It's a case in India also. In many countries, that is the case. And so, what happens is, farmers are tapping into underground aquifers and growing crops that need a lot of water that probably should not be grown in a particular place.
The example of Punjab.
Tell me more. Yeah.
Punjab is not suitable for rice cultivation.
Yeah.
It's suitable for wheat cultivation during winter season.
Rice needs a lot of water.
It needs more than 150 centimeters, while wheat requires 50 to 75 centimeters. But now in Punjab, they are doing the rice on a commercial basis.
Yeah.
And per capita, per hectare production over there is higher than the traditional rice roasteries.
Okay.
And it's depleted the aquifers which are there.
So they are pumping out lots of water and using it. Other places, are there other examples like this in India?
This was a very problem.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other examples from anywhere in India or any other place that you're aware of? I'll share an example from the US. One of the big states in the US is California. California is actually like a desert. Okay? But 60% of the fruits and vegetables grown in the US are grown in California. So how do they make this happen in a desert? They, in 2 or 3 states away from California, they built a major dam called the Hoover Dam. And 50 to 60% of all the water that is dammed at the Hoover Dam is sent to California. And this agreement was signed in 1930s or so between California and the other states with the support of the national government. So that dam provides all this water to California and goes across 1,500 miles or so. It goes across 1,500 miles to California. And in California, they grow crops like almonds. Almonds require a lot of water. And many other fruits, vegetables in a desert. Okay? Imagine, I don't know if you guys have been to Gwalior or Indore. They're very dry desert places. Imagine if a lot of water from Ganga, from Patna, is channeled to Indore. And Indore becomes the agricultural capital of India. That's how it is. It's crazy. Should not be happening. So much of water is taken and depleted and sent there. Bad use for agriculture.
We have a similar case in Rajasthan. Indira Gandhi Canal has been opened over there, and Sri Ganganagar district is there.
Where is that?
Rajasthan.
No, where in Rajasthan? West, east, north,
Western
south?
part of Rajasthan. Extremely dry area. area. And Sri Ganganagar district, it has been converted entirely into an agricultural zone because of the water of Indira Gandhi Canal.
And where is the canal getting the water from?
From Maharashtra.
So that's far away, right? So they're bringing it like maybe 600, 700 kilometers or something, or more than that, to that place. So these are all bad decisions. They're not sustainable. Yeah. Yeah. And I think agriculture in many countries also gets power supply at very low rates of free, right? In India it's free?
Do not see subsidized.
It's highly subsidized. Yeah. In agriculture.
That's why it become very sensitive any government to take a call.
Yeah.
And that's why even though that a lot of funding was there for the time of the cities, we were not able to do the privatization, which the Latin America they were trying.
Yeah.
It's very sensitive.
Very sensitive.
Other party will take immediately advantage of this, they will come.
Exactly. Exactly. So all these are very, very controversial issues.
There are two schools of thoughts also that is already accepted. Means water is free. It should not be charged by the government. Or government should give an opportunity to the citizen to earn that much amount. They should give that taxes in.
Yeah.
Like even Patna Municipal Corporation, they don't charge the water. They take the holding tax and say that some percentage is that. Directly they are not charged. Directly they will charge. The mayor and other person will use
Yeah.
the other person.
Yeah.
And I think in Rajasthan also it's quite a big challenging thing.
It is everywhere, all over the world, except in the global north,
Yeah.
where people pay for the service. But in the global south, it has been a huge challenge.
The global north, their per capita income is also high. And I suppose that's my understanding. I don't know about that. From the early childhood, they know that I have to earn and give that money to the municipality or government in order to take care of our infrastructure,
Yeah.
so that we can have the best quality of life.
Yeah, and generally there is faith in the municipality that if you give them some money, you'll get a decent quality
Yeah,
product.
that trust deficit is lacking in the global south.
Yeah, huge, big deficit in the global south. So you guys as planners have to build up that trust again if you want to go for the government service. So many of you are wanting to go for government service. You have to build up that trust. And so that's the big challenge. Agriculture is a big problem. In developed countries, the problem is the water supply is there, and often there is abundant water supply. But there is a crazy incentive to consume more water. Okay, like for example, in my city is a very small city, very good water supply system. 50% of the population has got a master's degree. It's a very literate place. 50% of the master's degree, okay, from a good university. So it's a very enlightened place, lots of. But recently I was looking up the structure of fees for water. So for the first, in every house, for the first 4,000 liters of water, like drinking, bathing, whatever, first 4,000 liters, they will charge, let's say, 1 rupee per liter. I'm making up the numbers. 4,000 to 10,000 liters, they will charge 0.75 rupees per liter. After 10,000, they'll charge 0.5 rupees per liter. So imagine if you were putting petrol in your car. First 5 liters, 150 rupees. Next 5 liters, 100 rupees. Okay. Next 5 liters, 50 rupees. What's going to happen? More and more consumption. So water is it's a scarce resource. You cannot price it that way. You cannot even have flat price. You cannot say like per liter it's going to be 1 rupee no matter what. You should say per liter, maybe the first 1,000 liters you pay 1 rupee. If you go above 1,000 liters you pay 1.5 rupees per liter. If you go above 5,000, 10,000 liters you pay 2 rupees per liter. That's how it should be. But even in an enlightened place like my city, they have a very bad water tariff structure. Most cities in India that have a water tariff structure, like for example Delhi and Bombay, where they price based on consumption, at least 20 years ago had a similar structure. The more you consume, the less you pay. The only thing that was saving the municipality from making major mistake was most people got water only for 1 or 2 hours a day. So you will not get into the more consumption block. Okay? So these are pricing things that should be. So in cities that have a pricing in India, there will be political support from the masses to change it. Why? Because who's benefiting from this price? It's the rich people who are benefiting. Okay? Because it's the rich people who consume more and they are paying less. So if a party can mobilize the lower income people and tell them, hey, the rich people are paying less for water than you are, there can be political pressure to change it. And it's fair also. It's poor people, rich people they have more income. They should be charged more. If they want to consume more, they should be charged. Yeah. Far away. Yeah. So there are
consumption also is very high.
Very high. So places like like Arizona, which you're familiar with, most of the water comes from 2 or 3 states away. Yeah. And they signed some deals long time ago.
Long time ago, in order to get that water.
Yeah.
They have this long channel.
Long channel. And most of the channels are open channels, so there's lots of evaporation. It's crazy. So there is a lot of misuse of water all over the world, in developed countries and developing countries, because people somehow believe that water is abundant. It's only when you live in a place like Delhi, or a place like Nairobi, or a place like Cairo, that you really understand how precious water is. Chennai also a huge problem. They're bringing water in tankers right to the city and filling the reservoirs and then pumping from the reservoir. Yeah.
And many of the Russians would migrate to that city if they have the major city because there are resources, so they only go some other city. So one of the also strong reason Patna is being populated very high because water abundance is very high.
Because of Ganga.
Because of the Ganga, and that our tributaries also 70 rupees charge our groundwater.
Yeah.
That's also one thing people are the assumption that we will get the water. that's why water is not being regulated and monitored here.
Now they have some law about private borrowing. Earlier there was no law regarding the private borrowings. Now government has come up with something. You need to get permission before getting a private borrowing.
In Patna,
It has been changed. Something has changed.
that government tried to get it.
That's a good initiative.
Government is trying.
But still it's not being implemented.
That's the thing, right? There are so many laws. You shall not do this and that, but who's following the laws, right?
Implementation becomes one of the again issues in the development. But it would be better if it can be regular the monitor and manage properly. Because we have the very good groundwater, emergency water and surface water.
You can tap the rainwater also down.
Yeah, that also works better. Somewhere
Good.
that consensus is there, you need to measure to water. But something is not coming out, that's the again two things.
People need support, technical support from the government. They want to do it, but they don't know how to do it. How to reasonable do it.
It's got to be solved. Some cities have solved it. When people are digging into putting their own tube wells or bore wells, it leads to a tragedy of commons problem. Everyone is taking uncontrolled, and in some places, I don't know, have you been to Mexico City? Okay, so if anyone goes to Mexico City, the airport is a bit far away from the city. When you go from the airport to the city, you're going through the suburbs of Mexico City, going to the center of the city. And Mexico City is like a saucer, okay? It's sort of like Patna, but fully a saucer. And when you go into the city from the airport, you'll see hillsides on both sides. And there are houses built, some informal, some formal. All of them, there is one prominent thing from an architectural perspective, one prominent thing in the front elevation or view of the house. A huge water tank on top of the house. Every house has it. Yeah, because there is a water scarcity and everyone is putting a borewell and pumping it up to their water tanks. Every house, that's the defining architectural characteristic of Mexico City, residential architecture in Mexico City. The water tank is the same shape, maybe 1,000 liters or so. And there are, and you can tell by the eras, like when initially all the water tanks were black. Then all the neighborhoods, the water tanks were yellow. Then most recent, all the water tanks are white. So you can identify which era that house or neighborhood was built by the color of the water tank. But all the houses have a water tank. That's the prominent architectural characteristic right now.
So I have in Latin America, the map shows that the Chile is the one country which is having the water district. I think that's very unique in the world. The Chile has already sold the water right to the private agency.
Yes.
The Chile does not have any right to use the water.
Yeah.
That's the only country in the Latin America.
Yeah.
So private company, they charge very high.
Yeah.
And government is not able to control it because they have already sold under this one.
Yeah.
So because of this, the water, even though Chile has a very strong economy in the Latin America, but Brazil and Chile, these two are very strong. So water becomes an issue. The people is trying to amend the constitution, but it's very hard because that has already been sold out to the private.
Yeah. And it's crazy for governments to sell that right?
How that was very surprise for me how government can take the decision to sell out to the private company. And private company says the battles goes on and they won always because we have already purchased this one. That's a very unique case in the world. And how government can sell the water right to the private company. That's why water stays in the private company does not want to subsidize it, does not want to give it to the people at the rate which they are going to give more benefit.
Yeah, and the more they extend the network at their own cost, more is the maintenance cost, more is the losses. So they don't want to cover everyone. If they are covering 50% of the population, they are not expanding the system. Yeah.
That's a very different history. I was surprised how that's a long back.
Yeah, long back. 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So a lot of battles in the world happen around water. Okay. I just want to quickly show you a little bit, water, use of water. A lot of water is used for food, especially meat. Okay, meat is very, very water intensive. So because you have to grow crops, and the crops, grass, whatever. Not so much in India, but India, a lot of meat is now becoming commercialized. Like chicken is almost fully commercialized. Beef also is getting commercialized. As it gets commercialized, it uses lots and lots of water. And so a lot of water is used in a whole bunch of things. Okay. So these are just some numbers. What we wear.
Where we go.
Where we go. So, some of the clothing items in college, everyone wears jeans. Very, very high water use for the manufacture of a jean. Okay, so
that's why nowadays.
Huh? But all the denim is actually made in India. Most of the denim that's used in US jeans is made in India.
India is so good to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Now made in Vietnam is there. Earlier it was made in
comes from
Bangladesh also.
the tag over here.
They make the tag over here. Yeah. 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 So there are various ways which you can solve the water problem. Okay, one is the pipe water system. But there's no, it's very difficult to expand pipe water systems in developing countries. So we must, in developing countries, start thinking of other options. Tankers, public standpoints, rainwater harvesting. Many cities have ponds, and coming up with a way to, traditional ponds, maintaining those traditional ponds, and maybe desalination also in extreme cases. I actually wanted to do an activity. Do we have time for an activity, or should we go to the other thing? I think we should go for the other one. We have okay. Okay. Yeah. So let me just describe the water supply system. Okay. Many of you are engineers, you know how the water supply system works. But if you're not an engineer, if you're an architect like I am, then I had to learn how a water supply system works, right? So I'll tell you how municipal water supply system works. First, water has to be taken from a source. So you need a reliable source where there are not too many contaminants. You take water from, let's say, from the ground source, and this then is taken to a treatment plant, water treatment plant. At the water treatment plant, first all the water is filtered. Okay. Second, there is a sedimentation tank. In a sedimentation tank, the water is kept still for a long time, like 5, 6, sometimes days, but maybe 1 or 2 days, depending on how much sediment is there. So water is kept in a sedimentation tank, and a lot of things fall down. Okay. Then it is taken to a second sedimentation tank, where some of the lighter particles need to be deposited. And for that, a chemical called alum is added to the water. What alum does is it tracks all the other solid particles, and then alum and chunks of alum fall down to the bottom of the tank. Then this entire water is filtered. So by that time, most of the dissolved matter is gone. Most of the particles that are in the sand, all of that, a lot of that is gone.
So,
two things remain. Yeah.
So actually at the times of COVID-19 when there was a scarcity of sanitizer, so at our place, we have made our own homemade sanitizer by making use of alum itself.
Yeah.
So we have used that item. So
Yeah.
it has all the properties that a sanitizer would have.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when it's put in alum, when alum is put in, there are these large paddles that move the water, and that mixes the alum with the water. So this is that large tank. It's a huge tank. It will be 2 or 3 times the size of this room for a small town. Okay? That machinery is called a flocculator. And there all this alum is nicely mixed with the water and mixes with all the particles and it falls down. Okay? Then after that, this water, if the water has got iron, sometimes when you draw the water, water has got iron. Iron is a very abundant mineral in soil. Okay? So there's a lot of iron. And iron, if it comes into the water, it's in the form of a chemical compound called ferrous oxide, Fe2O3. Okay, the chemical formula is Fe2O3, ferrous oxide. Ferrous oxide is water soluble. Okay, but if to remove that chemically, it's a very, very difficult process. So you know how water companies remove it? What water companies do is, after the water has been purified and all that, to remove iron, they create a fountain. Okay, so this water with iron is sent through the fountain. So if you go to a water treatment plant and if you see a fountain, that's not meant for architectural reasons or for fun. It is actually a chemical reaction happening. So they put this water through the fountain. When it becomes droplets, it is exposed to oxygen. The ferrous oxide combines with oxygen to form ferric oxide. Ferric oxide is not soluble. It's not water soluble. So ferric oxide then becomes a suspended particle in the water. That water is then sent through an array of filters, lots of filters. So lots of chemicals, calcium carbonate, iron oxide, everything is taken out. And after that, it is then sent through a plant for chlorinating. And they put chlorine in it. Chlorine is to kill all the biologically active matter in it. And then after that, in most plants now, they are putting the chlorinated water through UV radiation, ultraviolet radiation. So the radiation also kills the bacteria. And then the water is stored in an overhead tank from which it flows by gravity down. Okay? Now, because water is a precious commodity, the water that generally flows, ideally the distribution system is a closed loop. That is, water goes down from one side and comes back on the other side. Okay, it's a closed loop. But then if you have a break, the loop is broken and water flows up. Okay? One of the problems in many developing countries is that there'll be a small construction project, someone will break a pipe, the loop is broken, and then water is flowing up. The other problem is, in many cities, the water supply system is very, very old, and over time, these water supply pipes develop small microscopic cracks, which is not a big problem as long as water is flowing through them all the time. So if you have 24/7 water supply through a cracked pipe, it's not a big problem. Some water will go. You'll lose some water, that's a problem. But what happens is, many cities, like for example Delhi, you don't have 24/7, you don't have water supply 24 hours a day. Your water supply only for 1 or 2 hours a day in any large colony. Okay? Which means for 20 or 22 hours a day, the pipes that are supplying water there have a partial vacuum. So what happens is, stuff from outside comes into the water supply pipes because of that vacuum. So this treated water gets contaminated with bad stuff. And that's why in many cities, municipal water is not good enough to drink. It's because of that contamination. It's not the municipality supplying bad water. It's that the infrastructure is in bad shape and bacteria and other particles enter into it because of this partial vacuum that's created in the water supply system. Okay. I think it's 11:25, so we should walk across to the other, for the other topic. So we'll break now, we're going for the other topic, okay?